Hi.
Hi.
Yay, worked.
It did. It's the first live I ever do on Instagram.
Yeah, I've done one, but I wasn't hosting it, so I'm glad that we figured it out.
Hi, Penny. So I have a oh yeah, cool. People are joining.
Uh, so did you have some lunch?
I did. I had two clients in the morning. It's like Instagram at two. I rushed back. My toddler is still here, so
Yeah,
if you hear some sounds, that's her.
yeah,
We're also my partner is here, so he's
yeah,
helping out.
yeah.
What about you?
Yeah, I just got some lunch, and so I'm all set to go. I'm at our shop, so I found a little office to borrow. So yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. So it looks like we have a handful of people here. So I think we should probably just go ahead and get started. What do you think?
Absolutely. Yeah, that sounds
Okay.
great.
Okay, awesome. So thanks everybody for joining us. I'm super excited today because we have Tania Lanfer here with us. She's the owner of Cannon Dog Training based in Oakland. She's a super experienced, awesome, positive reinforcement trainer who has a lot of focuses, a lot of things that she, has specialties in. But we focused on my blog post, which is on the Hightail Hikes blog, on dog bite prevention and thinking about issues around dogs and babies and dogs and kids, because I just think it's such an important topic. And we have so much input from social media and popular culture around, pictures and videos of dogs and kids, and so many of those interactions are just not safe, or not, the dogs are not really getting consent and not looking comfortable or looking stressed. And so I think that to counteract that, it'd be great to get some of your experience and knowledge about, safe ways to help your dog and your baby or your child coexist, and just some tips. So yeah, there's info on the blog, but we can go into more depth here, or we can, answer questions. So if you do have questions, you can, put them in the comments, and we can either answer them as we go, or we can, take some questions at the end too. So Tania, do you want to start just by talking a little bit about your background and sort of how you came to the world of dog training?
Absolutely. I came in a way that a lot of other dog trainers also came about, which is like from a different profession, and
Mm-hmm.
somehow stumbled a harder dog somehow, and was curious about how to improve their own lives and the lives of their dogs. So I think that's also my case. I was doing my PhD in music at UCSD, had my full scholarship, and was already ABD all but the dissertation. So I
Mm-hmm.
had I was ready to go, and
Wow.
I had a lot of trouble with my dog, and that really got me super into studying behavior, not
Mm-hmm.
only dogs but other animals as well. And I got hooked. That is
Mm-hmm.
such a topic. I couldn't look away anymore, so I had to embrace embrace
Yeah.
the direction. um, and then yeah, and then I started doing more formal training after that. So I joined a shelter, like a local shelter, and that was the San Francisco SPCA. And they're very heavy on behavior, very heavy on positive reinforcement training, and that definitely got me started. I did a lot of professional training later as well. So I was doing dog training um, courses, webinars, workshops, seminars,
Yeah.
things I could put my hands on. I did a lot of clicker expos. I did the Bob Bailey operant conditioning course, or at least part of it. I did Trish King's Canine Behavior Academy. I became an intern at the SPCA. And later I was hired as a trainer there. So I did a lot of continuing education, and I continue to do so because it's very important.
Yeah, definitely. So what are some of the areas of focus that you're most interested in right now? And then I guess also sort of how did you come into having a focus in with working with families and dogs and babies and kids?
Yeah. Well, a lot of my cases are reactivity, are dogs that bark and lunge at other dogs. That's also because we live in the city where
Right.
some neighborhoods are crowded.
Yep.
And so we have a lot of that. And that's a passion of mine. Luckily, because we have so many of those.
Mm-hmm.
But also when I was never super like knowledgeable about the topic of families and dogs and how to live safely and coexist until I had my toddlers. So I had two babies, now toddlers, separately, not twins. And that definitely got me really, really hooked on that topic of children and dogs. And I was shocked because now me with dog trainers, I seeing all around me whenever I talk to other families who had dogs. The common thing I always heard was exactly what you said in the beginning, Liz, which is that imagery of the nanny dog, right? The kids hugging the dog with two hands with a grip of death. So
Yeah.
we see that all over, and I saw that all over. And now me being a mom, I was shocked. Not shocked,
Right.
but we know that that's the reality. But I wanted to make some change, and I definitely got really into that topic because it was a daily thing for me. I really wanted to make sure my dog felt safe and comfortable, and
Mm-hmm.
also my kid. Um, on the other hand, as well, they didn't feel afraid of the dog bouncing on them and stepping on them. Um, yeah, there's a lot of things that can go wrong, so I definitely want to make sure everything was good to go. So
Right.
kids and dogs, reactivity. I also do a lot of dog sports. I do scent detection with my dog, super fun. I do so many different training. I love a lot of areas of dog training. I get very excited about it. I can chat forever about each one of them.
Perfect. Yeah. So, can you talk a little bit more about? I know you've used the term a lot, like kids getting magnetized to dogs and vice versa. And so, I think this is a super important concept for people to understand because I think the impulse when a new baby comes home or a new dog comes into the household is that the parents want the dog and the child or the dog and the baby to, bond and want them to be best friends or want them to, they love seeing, you see the pictures of the dog snuggling with the baby and that sort of thing. And so, you know, you talk about sort of that idea of not having the interaction, the physical interaction happen. So can you talk a little bit more about why you stress that with dogs and babies?
Absolutely. Pretend you you are tied, your arms are tied, and you are on the floor. You're floor level, lying down, face up, and you're and uh, and you have like a I don't know, like a 5, 6, 7 month old baby at you, and they're approaching you, and there you are, tied. You cannot move. You cannot really use your hands much. That little baby has a very strong grip. They're going to get your hair, and they're going to so strongly, but so strongly, they're going to get a chunk. At the same time, they also will grab your glasses. Now your glasses are out and your eyeballs are in their hands and your lips. Oh my God, the lips. I did that task. I wanted to know, like
Yeah.
what is it like to be trapped with a young baby. It's horrible, you guys. It doesn't look like it is going to be, but if you actually have no hands, look what happens. Try it. Try it at home and see what happens. It's terrifying.
Hmm.
It hurts, literally. So dogs feel very much that, like in their real life, they don't have hands to push them away. The way they can communicate with us is through their mouth or fleeing or with distance. It's one of the two.
Hmm.
So either they're vocalizing or they're uh, growling, snapping, biting on all those things, or they're moving away. So I don't want to take chances. I like to have to give them choices. So I like yeah, what you said about not getting babies McIntyre dogs and vice versa. And that term didn't come from me. There's a famous blog post about it that talks a lot about it. And since then, I think a lot of dog trainers started doing that as well, and I certainly did. I talk a lot about coexistence, about how to safe coexist and do a lot of parallel coexistence, parallel play. And the reason why I think that's important is that that little grip that I talked in the beginning is there. And in a very, very young baby, it starts as a reflex. When you touch their hands, they grip as a reflex. It's not even conscious. That's what they do. That's when, we put your hand like that on a young baby, they close their fist, and it's just a reflexive thing. When they feel a dog, they also do that. And now you have this. And now you start having like the very, very beginning of their relationship is with hair pulling. Because of that, especially in those first months, in that first year, I think it's crucial to keep those little hands from grabbing feet. Dogs usually hate their feet grabbed. So definitely keeping physically separated. It doesn't mean that you need to really exclude your dog from your life now. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking is simply getting some measures, getting some training done so your dog can safely stay in one side, you stay in the other side, and there's no grabbing. I think that's one of the major things that happen in the beginning.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And then ideally, as the dog, I know you've talked about how, like, I know with your babies, you pretty much, like, the assumption or the rule, right, was not, you don't approach, you don't interact with the dog.
That's
and then
right.
As they get older, they sort of internalize that boundary, right? But if that's not the expectation when they're tiny and they're maybe not as capable of really being strong and fast and getting to the dog, then what are they going to do when they're 2 or 3, or when they
Yeah.
free access? So
when they are used to it, if they always played with the cell phone and now suddenly you say, oh, it's looking a little dangerous, I don't want you to play anymore, if it is with the dog, now we have a problem, because now the kid is going to get frustrated, and that's also a problem, because with frustration comes hitting, comes like punching, shoving, and pushing, and
right.
that's what you do with the dog as well. Like, I can't get it, like, why now I'm angry and frustrated. So these are another set of problems. So you're right, when you start that from the beginning, that's just a way of being.
Right.
It's pretty much what we do with knives and other sharp objects. We don't just, hey, be gentle with the knife, don't kill yourself.
Right.
We assume that things are going to go wrong. Why don't we assume that with dogs? And then if the dog really proves himself to be very, very gentle and very, very calm and very non-aroused and all the things, then you can start actually implementing more and more contact. But not until then, not until the dog and the toddler has proven themselves to be very chill about one another and not really have the expectation of that physical interaction. There's so many ways they can coexist and play in a way. Like babies don't actually play with each other until much later, even in their, they parallel play, all right, but they will play with others, with peers, much, much later. So even expecting them to play with a dog is not really appropriate. They won't do that. They will play with the dog one directional, but it's not a play like a mutual play. That will later. So I feel like that having the expectation of them really, really bond in that first month, it creates a lot of problems later. So I will say chill, breathe, and then take it is the same as if you're introducing to dogs. We do that over a big chunk of time. We don't rush things. I'm not a fan of, hey, sniff the baby, here you go. It's natural. The dog is one, probably will want to sniff the baby. Can do that very casually. Just, yeah, I can sniff, but I'm walking, I'm doing my thing. And then dog goes to the mat or does something else. And you create like the expectation that the dog also is not used to rushing to the baby, which is also a problem. It goes both ways.
Right. Yeah, and I think that we're skipping around a little bit from kind of some of the questions, but I wanted to ask you about food and resource guarding, because I know I'm just thinking about like what are some of the most important things that parents can need to be thinking about with kids and dogs in the home. And so what are your recommendations around feeding dogs or high value items in the home with dogs, even for dogs who who haven't had issues with resource guarding in the past? What are your recommendations?
Yeah, very, very strict rule about it. Resource guarding is one of the biggest problems we have with young toddlers, young babies, and dogs. It's a very common reason for bites. So because of that, because of the high incidence of bites for that particular reason, I have a very simple rule. A dog is fed behind a gate, period. That's it. It's a simple rule that a lot of people don't follow because, oh, it's okay, it's fine. And that the toddler eventually approaches the dog from behind, not even with the intention of messing with the food, let's say, just passing around, and the dog starts to get a little tense every time, and a little tense because the kid is screaming, was playing, whatever, was singing, was stomping the feet, was being toddler, right? Was just being a toddler. The dog's like, but I'm eating, I'm starting to get nervous. And then we start like months and months and months. Now the dog might snap or bite. So, or what happens very often, the toddler is running around and kind of like stumbles on the dog, just boom, crash.
Right.
Sitting, bite, just a bite, right then. So because it happens so often, I'll say you have to be very careful. It should be a rule that dogs are fed separately. And when you have a high resource, for example, a bullet stick or a cow hoof, any chewy or a Kong stuffed with peanut butter or something, that there's a barrier, or you're watching that interaction as a hot. And a lot of bites happen also when the parent is watching, which tells me that just watching usually is not enough. We know, and to your mom, how tired we get. We are like a year or no sleep, or 2 or 3 in my case. I woke up at least 5 times this past night. Can I really trust my judgment that I will be there 100%? I would say no. Just count the times we leave the oven on without turning it off, and make mistakes because we are so tired. And because you're so tired, don't trust that you're going to be watching. A lot of bites happen when the owners and the parents are watching. So right. Behind the gate, resources away behind the gate as well. So it's very, very useful to create a safe space for the dog where the dog can eat separately and be used to staying in that location without too much frustration. So I think it's very, very crucial to have those separations in place.
Right. Yeah, and you talk about that too. That's one of the things that can be worked on before the baby comes home. Even is just teaching your dog that they can be in a separate area away from you while you're eating, or while you're in another room, right? That that's something that you can do ahead of time. And so you talked about the treat and train, right? So I don't know if you want to talk about how that works, and before the baby, and then you also talked about when the baby comes home, how you can kind of create that positive association between the baby and the getting treats.
Absolutely. Yeah. So before the baby comes, there's so much families can do. Usually I focus on the families I work with on teaching the dog to be okay with being separated, as you said. So just behind a gate. And usually the owners will say, no, my dog is great on the crate. At night, she always sleeps in the crate. She's fine. So, okay, it's not nighttime. The dog is not drowsy and sleepy. The dog is going to be energetic and awake and wanting to interact and be right there with you. Are you sure the dog is okay being separated? Yes. Okay, let's try. Bark, 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 bark. So,
Right.
you have to train. You have to get your dog used to being separated by a gate, which is very not much what they're used to. So, and having the dog used to being in another room than yours is not the same either. Because when the dog realizes there is a closed gate, oh, frustration, barking, over arousal, like, lot of problem behaviors happening, and you don't want a barking dog when you're trying to just settle and your baby. So I would say get your dog used to that. And one of the tools we can use and implement to help that is the treat and train, as you said, is basically like a helmet looking like machine with a remote control. You press the remote, machine turns, push, cookie is spit out of it. So I put that little machine up in a high in the furniture, remove the bottom, the cookies fall right there where the dog is lying down. So basically, if you teach your dog to stay in a particular location lying down, you can have the treat and train help you with the idea of being okay while separated, at least easing out that first moment, the first moment of training this, because it's so hard to train. It's such a hard thing to train dogs to be fully separated from us. So, and because I will separate them from some hours in the day, they might be separated from me. I want to definitely train that. Then use long-lasting chews to start with the treat and train, and building some duration, and eventually not use much of that at all. But in the beginning, it really helps out. And then when the baby come, as you said, you can also use the treat and train to help building some positive associations with some sounds of the baby, for example. I remember when I had a young baby, I didn't want to have my hands always with dog food because I was right there with my baby, So I had my necklace remote control from treat and train, and every time baby started to fuss, made a sound, cried, I would press the button, and my dog would get immediately a cookie right away. So cookie, that's it. So it does ease up a lot some of the troubles. I remember in the first months, my dog was a little stressed out with her crying, and I definitely did that. I said, you know what, go to a place right there, get some distance away from the sound source, and use the treat and train to help out with that transition. So it definitely helps.
Right. So yeah, you mentioned stress. So maybe we could talk about, some of those. I know it's so individual to the dog often, but you talk about how there's this whole ladder that leads up to a bite, right? So a bite is at the very end of usually what's like a sequence of communications that the dog is trying to make about their comfort level. And some of them can be really subtle. So what are some of the signs that people can look for, changes in behaviors that show that their dog is, feeling stressed or not comfortable?
That's a great question. There's a lot of signals dogs give before last warnings. And what owners usually notice is the showing the teeth, the growling, the biting. They know those. So that's good. We know some. So now let's also know the other signals, right? Because we know the very last ones. When things are way too far out, like when problems already have been established. So let's talk about the other ones, the small stress signals that they give. So a lot of dogs, maybe one of the first ones, let's say you have a dog that generally breathes with the mouth open. The dog closed the mouth. That's usually is a sign. It's one of those signs of I needed to close my mouth because I needed to stop making the sound of my own breathing so I can hear better. So that could be like the minor, like a tiny little signal, right? Just open the mouth, or some dogs actually shut the mouth like this, like more like a shut mouth. That's more like actually instead of curiosity of the sound, is actually more like I don't feel good about it. You see the tongue flick or the lip lick. It's just a little tiny fraction of a second. You blink, you miss it. It's so fast. But once you learn to look for those signals, you cannot unsee it. So a lip lick is a sign of stress. The other one is yawning. Lots of sound happening. The dog, and that's out of context. The dog was not sleeping. The dog is not going to sleep, but the dog is yawning. Usually, are you tired? No, he's stressed. Nope, not tired. Out of context. It's not time for sleeping. Dog is not tired. The other one could be scratching. That's one my dog does a lot too. I forgot in the blog, but she does a lot of that. She scratches when she's a little stressed. So she lip licks. A lot of dogs put their ears back. You can see the white of the eye. So when they're kind of like this, they're just looking sideways. A dog that is head turning. So you come in front and the dog is like, just head turning, saying, no, thank you. That's a no, thank you. It is not a yes, proceed to grab my cheeks and pull it. No, thank you. The dog was asking space. A stiff neck. If the dog is generally like this, watching things, and the dog kind of like stops and cannot move their neck, like it's just very stiff, that's another signal. There's so many, right? There's so many signals. A dog is that actually like stares. Staring is big, and usually it's pretty bad. I say, if your dog is staring with the mouth closed and the stiff neck, interrupt right away, take an action. Something's about to happen. So something about to happen, meaning now the dog can start growling, or now the dog can rush and snap. Those are pre signals that something is about to happen. So why don't we try to stop them before? And instead of just being reactive to, I see stress signals, let me then separate. What if we create a household where those signals don't need to happen so often? Maybe the dog will be a little sad and frustrated on the other side of the gate, but the dog is not feeling unsafe, and which might lead to a bite, which might lead to the family feeling unsafe, which might lead to rehoming. So, I rather be proactive and watch all those signals and try to be proactive then, but even better, create a house where you don't even get to see those signals that often. But if you do, you know what they mean. If you YouTube it, dog body language, there are thousands of videos, great videos about all those body language. I think it's one of the most important things for parents to do is to learn how to watch the minor signs of stressed body language.
So at what age would you say, for you or for a client, would you say that you can start thinking about introducing a little bit more interaction, or what kinds of activities would you recommend that the kid and the dog could do together that are safe and allow for more of that relationship? I know you've talked about like impulse control with toddlers, right? So they might know what they're supposed to do or not supposed to do, but there's that disconnect between the brain and the body. So at what age would you say that you can start to allow for a little bit more contact?
I think it's really much dependent on the dog and on the kid, but for my family, for example, where my dog is older, she's not as active anymore, she's not crushing into her, but she's big, and my toddler was very used to not coming strong and hugging the baby. She never ever did that ever in her life, ever. Wow. So because of those things, I know that I can trust her to do more things with my dog, because know that she understands more at this point. She understands more about those boundaries. You know, it's just how she was raised. My second baby, for example, my Zach, because he went to daycare much earlier, I came to do way less of that kind of instruction early on with him. So he's a little bolder with my dog. So I treat them differently. The freedoms my older daughter has are not the freedoms my younger boy has. So for her, we started early on with the treat and train machine. I'll give her the remote control. Say, oh, if you catch Peter sitting, press the button. And then she sits, and there'll be like a delay of like, because toddlers, right? She's just like, what was I doing in the first place? Oh yeah, beep. So the little delay. Dog, for example, gets super frustrated with delays. Maybe not a good game to play, but if your dog is fine with this, sure. So she'll press the remote control. Another thing she would do is she would sit in a chair and she'll offer her hand, and the dog will hand touch on her, and then she'll say yes, or she just toss a cookie. The reason why I like this is because the toddler is stationary. That kid is not moving towards, and the dog has a choice to move away if needed.
Right.
It has food, so it is a big magnet anyway, but at least the kid is on a chair. It's a game, structured game. I think getting into structured games are a good idea. She was like 2.5 or 3 when she started. Maybe we did a few things before that, but those are very incipient, but more a routine. We started like a 2.5, 3 years old. Now my second son, like my second child, Zach, just turned 2. And the way sometimes he does things is sometimes he'll it's really cute. When she appears at the door because she just came back from the backyard, he's the one that rushes to the door, opens the door, she comes in, he closes the door. He loves playing that. So yeah, like a kind of interaction that they can do. You are responsible for opening the door and closing. Or sometimes he'll toss treats at her, so he'll get a bunch of cookies in his head and just toss. So that's something he can do. He doesn't need to do a hand touch because he's a little more hands-on. So I put him in a little chair and say, if you want to play this game, you have to remain sitting. If you stand up, that means it's over because you're done playing. That's okay. Then I'll remove my dog immediately. So he's not okay, even if I stand up, I should get to play. No, you don't. You stood up, dog goes away. I'm not hard about it. I'm just consistent, but I'm not harsh. I'm not angry ever. I'm just very consistent. Oh, you stood up. The game is over. Yay, cool. That's it. So those actions I allow to have. Now, we don't have a TV. We don't sit on the couch very calmly and watch TV for hours. We just don't own one. It's not part of our activities. But a lot of families do. If you're a family with a TV on and you watch things and your dog likes to cuddle up and do that, if you have a kid that doesn't do the grabby, but this is a thing where everybody's watching something and not paying attention on the dog, maybe that's an activity to do. You can watch TV all on the couch because everybody's settled. The kid is definitely like just being a mommy, just watching the TV. That's actually okay for me because the dog is really getting used to even being close to the toddler is safe because the toddler is completely absorbed by doing something else.
Not moving. Right.
Safe interactions, safe coexistence. Yeah,
absolutely. And then what, as far as meeting, other dogs out in the world, there's going to be times where you're around at a park or somewhere and there's a dog and, the kid wants to say hi or the owner wants to, what are the guidelines that you talk about for, that type of interaction?
I do have like some rules that I follow in my head when I meet dogs outside and I am with my toddlers. One of them is trust no one. Meaning, even if a dog looks really good and the owner say, totally friendly, totally fine. If my toddler goes there and pat on the head, which is not a horrible thing, but dogs usually don't like it. And let's say the dog takes offense on that. That dog is just fine except the head. And the owner didn't tell you that part. Everything but the head. And now you have an incident. So I say, be very watchful of the dog's body language. That's the first thing you have to watch. You just like look head, and if that's not going to be okay, you just avoid your toddler anyway. Just, well, today we're not going to do greetings, we have to go. But let's say you decide to maybe the toddler showed some interest and say, yeah, well, let's ask the owners. So I would think about 3 different rules. You have to ask the owner, hey, guy, like you, handler of that cutie dog, can my child pet your dog? And then if he says yes, you say, hey, toddler, do you feel this is a good dog for you? Do you want to say hi to that dog? And say, yep, I do. And then people usually stop there, right? People stop there and say, well, good enough. Owner said yes, toddler said yes, I'm okay with it. But we didn't ask the dog. And that's what people forget. Ask the dog if the dog likes to meet a tiny little creature. A lot of dogs are not okay with kids. Period. Now, how to ask the dog? Ask the kid to be kind of sideways and kind of small, and hey, clap, clap, hello, invitation, hello. Do you want to say hi? Says the toddler. And if the dog approaches with loose body language, loose spine, open mouth, the ears are not completely back, they're kind of neutral. And the tail is also kind of neutral in relationship to the natural carriage of that dog. Then you kind of you observe, and if the dog approaches, then that might be a yes for that moment. So teach your toddler that pats in the head might not be the way to go. Why don't you do like a little chest rub? Like spreading a little cream on the chest, just like 1, 2, 3 little circles. That's it. Stop. Take your hands away and see if the dog wants more. Many times the dog is tolerating. Oh no, the toddler is doing this thing. I said yes, but I didn't know he was going to do that. Eeks. And then the toddler takes the hand and goes, oof, okay, let me go back to my owner. Bye. I don't want it anymore. And that's an answer. Now, if the toddler stays with the hand there, the dog kind of feels a little captive. Even though the toddler is not grabbing, dogs have a hard time going away when they're being petted. So assume that the dog is feeling grabbed, even though it isn't literally true. And they're feeling a little bit cornered because they are on leash. They don't feel they can truly move away. Does it make sense?
Right, absolutely, yeah. And I know something you mentioned in the article was, what a great way to teach your kid about just consent in general, right? For how they would interact with another person, or you have to make sure it's mutual and that there's ongoing consent for whatever is happening, if you're playing or whatever. So I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah, and the consent isn't I don't think there is a more important thing to teach, especially in boys, well, everybody honestly, but to teach our kids about consent, and that consent doesn't say one little yes in the beginning. Consent, as you said, is ongoing. You have to have a resounding yes for continuing that interaction. And dogs are a great model to train that for your kids, because we are offered the benefit of multiple repetitions on that subject over and over again. Oh, it looks like the dog said no. Let's stop. Let's give the dog space. And the about it is that the way humans feel better is hugging. Oh, let me go close to mommy. Let me cling. Let me be frontal and hug and kiss and all those frontal things. And dogs are not like that. Like, oh, the dog is a little scared. Oh, the dog is scared. Should I go and hug the dog then? No. The way dogs feel better is very distinct from the way we humans feel better. Dogs need. And it was funny because just like the other day, there was a fly inside the house, and my dog was feeling a little stressed. She doesn't like flies in the house. She gets a little stressed out, and she was offering some weird body language. And my toddler like, oh, it looks like Peter is stressed. I said, oh, whoa, do you know that? Crazy. We talked. Great. And she said, yeah, I think she needs some space. I said, yes, she does. She doesn't need a hug. She needs space. Dogs need space. So we took her out to the backyard where she was away from the fly. So that's a great example that concept is being ingrained in her. She needs this to stop. She needs to move away, and she needs a dog appropriate way of feeling better, which is very distinct than us. And just as a side note, because I cannot stop speaking, is that toddlers, if not trained otherwise, they will feel that a growl, a dog showing teeth, is a smile, you guys. Let this sink in for a second. A dog is growling at them. Oh, dog is smiling. Do they need a hug? Like, no, they don't. No, they're not smiling. So, right? Yeah, it's crazy. We have to really be watchful. We have to teach our kids also about body language and consent.
Yeah.
All that.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, I don't know if we have any questions. If anybody has a question they want to ask, you're welcome to type it in. But I'm just thinking, while I have you here, I have another question just for my own that I figured I would ask you.
Yes.
You know, we do our best to do all of the things that you talked about, and you know, we're not perfect, but we try. But I do notice that even if there's like separation, or even if there's not direct contact happening, I think our dog just gets stressed by the energy level and the sound, and just like having a toddler in the house. And like, can you think of some things that we can do to just help him? Like, I just feel like his anxiety just tends to go up if our son is, you know, like you said, stomping or being loud, or like, you know, if he's running around, our dog will tend to like go run and try to find a stuffy or a pillow or something, right? And he'll kind of start pulling the stuffing out, or, you know, if it gets really bad, he'll start like humping something, or, you know, things like that. Like, what are some ways we can help him, you know, find some outlets, or help with that anxiety of just the toddler energy?
Yeah.
In the house.
Totally. And I deal with that too. Not coincidentally, toddlers are hard. Toddlers are predictable. You know, they're jumping out of the couch and the whole house trembles. Or everything shakes. Like my dog's like, oh God, oh dog. So how to help your dog with those things? I'll say two important things. One is, when a dog is actually stressed, and that's a daily thing, I personally would consider pharmaceutical help. I would talk to the vet and say, you know what? My dog is feeling a little funny every day. The quality of life of my dog is not the same. I feel like my dog is always stressed out. That's when I say, you know what? Let's not get this continue. Let's improve your dog's quality of life. And if you get a drug from your vet and your dog is a zombie, and that's the fear a lot of people have, a lot of dog owners say, you know, I don't want my dog a zombie. If your dog is a zombie, the dosage is not right. That's not what it should look like. It should look like just a dog that is a little chill, just a little happier, just a little less triggered by those things. Now, that's one thing. I will start there. Just consider this as a way of helping your dog from inside out. Now, outside in. I have a very structured calendar in my fridge and say, you know what? I know that things go crazy every day from 6 to 8 p.m. It's horrible for my dog's perspective. It's fun for the kids. They are having a blast. During the other parts of the day, they are usually kind of more chill, but 6 to 8 p.m., like that nighttime routine and bath time and dinner, like everything is like transition after transition. There's a lot of screaming, there's a lot of play, there's a lot of movement. So I know for a fact that those times of the day are hard. So I separate my dog during those times. I create a visual barrier if needed. I put a sound, like a white noise machine for my dog, and maybe some shows and some on my laptop. I make the environment a little more separated for her if she's used to that, right? Don't
Right.
for a dog, the dog's going to be stressed out. Some people, if you have like a shaded parking area, you live in a house, for example, a lot of people say, you know what, my dog really can't be separated ever, but he does okay in the car. Can you do a little bit of a time in the car? Unless the dog's stressed out, don't do that. But if the dog's fine in the car, that's one option. But if it is inside the house, let's say a condo apartment or something, white noise machine, barriers, a lot of soundproofing, like as much as you can.
Yeah.
And you can also teach your kids a little more about inside voices, though I actually don't, because they do that already in the daycare. I want, like, when they are here, I want them to be able to scream. That's fine with me personally, but my dog is okay with that. If my dog didn't, I might change the rule slightly and say, you know what, actually, let's keep it down. And if you're really, really wanting to scream, let's all scream outside. That's one thing. I don't want to crush the kids' desire to play, right? But I will give an outlet that maybe is a little loud, or just a reminder, or go away. Some dogs can do well with some sound desensitization and some training about triggers, about flying objects and all that. But that takes a while, and usually people are wrong if they do it alone without a trainer. It's very easy to sensitize a dog instead of desensitizing them. So that's you repeat so the dog never has enough time to recuperate between those exposures. You end up sensitizing the dog, and that's a problem. That's why I say, you know, for those kind of things, it's better to work with a trainer. But if you kind of know what you're doing and you have done this before, I would say desensitizing to certain triggers is helpful. But we have to assume that the dog is kind of being flooded. The dog is living in a location where it cannot feel safe, because there will always be sounds, and that's a problem. If it is so much a problem that I feel the quality of life for that dog is really, really low, I wouldn't shy away from talking to the owner about rehoming the dog if the dog is truly, truly, truly stressed out and the quality of life is just miserable. It doesn't sound like the dog is like that. It sounds like there are moments where but if the kid is chill and drawing and doing those activities, probably the dog is a little more chill. So those barriers, those separations with a lot of white noise machine, and trying to keep the energy a little lower during those crazy times that is about to happen.
And we're lucky we do have a backyard where we can go, and so we'll often use that to, you know, we'll scatter food, or bring the dog outside, or bring the kid outside, and
absolutely,
you know, or one of us will take him, you know, for a walk, or that sort of thing. So, but
I think like what about food scatter is great. If you like, okay, the dog is really stressed out and it's near dinner time already. Okay, whoosh,
take dinner outside.
I'll go to town, right? That's a good option. And it also is a predictor. Oh, things are crazy. Okay, I'm going to get fed. You can become a predictor of being fed, actually.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Well, did you I don't know if we missed anything that you really wanted to touch on. I did want to just ask, if people are interested in working with you, or, you know, learning more, they can, maybe you can talk about, are you offering consults for people just locally right now, or do you offer to, you know, the greater remote?
I do because for baby and dog topic, I think it's so crucial to see the inside space. So I do offer online Zoom. Everybody's zoomed out, but I do offer Zoom sessions because it's crucial to see the space. For example, in my house, so many corridors, everything is tight. I have to be very careful about furniture placement so the dog doesn't feel cornered when toddlers are running. You see, like that, you have to see the space. So I love doing online sessions because of that. And a lot of things by talking and basically coaching the people to train their dogs. And what we focus the training on is a lot of mat work. Mat work on steroids, so much mat work. Can your dog go to your mat and stay there? If you fall, like you have a bowl of popcorn and you trip and you felt like every piece of popcorn is on the floor, can your dog still stay there? That's good mat work. That will help you. That will help your life with your toddler and your dog. If your dog has a cue to go to the mat and can also resist the temptation of leaving at the first sign. So we work a lot of work, a lot of separation from barriers, a lot of sound desensitization if needed. All those little things I think are very, very crucial. And also I coach a lot of parents about how to do limit setting with their toddlers, which is something we didn't talk actually. We could go a little bit more on this topic.
Yeah.
Which is how to limit set your toddler. Like, what is the toddler training part of it? And a toddler is not a dog, is not a dog, is not a dog. Totally not the same. But at the same time, we can teach young children about a lot of things. If you think about like very, very like young babies, like what they know and what they don't about language, for example. Like newborn to 6 months, they understand gestures and stuff and expressions and tones of speech. When they're like 6 to 8 months, they are actually starting to pay attention on our speech and our communication. Like they understand language, a little bit of language that is spoken to them. And then 10 to 12 months, they really understand much more. So the part of teaching kids is don't assume they're not listening. Don't assume they're not learning. They are. And how can we teach our kids what to do verbally? Because they're not dogs. We're going to interact with them in different ways. Now, we can do a lot of limit setting towards them. So if they are starting to drag their bodies around and you see that they lock eyes on the dog and they like dada, like doggy, and they start like pushing their bodies towards the dog, when do you intervene? When they're right close to the dog or before? Like, do you say something? Do you take them and put in another room? That's not what I do, by the way. What can you do with the toddler? I think one of the crucial things is stopping the toddler physical barriers. I usually say to my toddler, I can let you approach the dog. She's resting. And I follow that up with a hand. I hear people saying, I told my toddler, I told 100 times, he still did it. Of course he did. He will. Yeah. He's a toddler. Follow up what you said with showing what you mean, which means I won't allow you to go to the dog. I'm going to stop you. And you don't have to be angry. Again, I never had a frown in my face saying that ever. I usually say, dog is resting. That's not. We're not. I'm not going to let you approach her, and I'll physically stop her. And let's say she's like, and then she looks at something else and decides to do something else. I immediately take the pressure off. I step back, and then she looks back at the dog. I'm still not going to allow you to go to her. She's resting. Same message, same consistency, 100%. Every time you start dragging her body, I'm going to physically body block. While I explain to her that that's not what we're going to do. We don't dogs. They're resting. But I don't say a general, we don't do that. I do. You don't. I won't let you approach a toddler because I can approach my dog, but you can't. It's like a knife. It's for adults only. Sorry. That kind of thing.
And if you repeat it enough times in that really neutral voice, then it's like, okay, well, eventually,
yes,
they'll internalize it.
never take my eyes off, even though my toddler never rushed and hug her ever. Am I going to actually count on it? No, I'm not. Even though I can almost bet $100 and like 99.9999% that she won't do it. But you know, I'm always watching, because even though if she doesn't do exactly that, because at this age everything is ever changing. What if today she does a different sound with a different power that I didn't realize that she could do, and suddenly my dog actually got stressed? Let's say, for example, your own dog wasn't stressed, or your toddler, when the toddler was just crawling around, but now that he's walking, now it's a problem. So sometimes we are, as parents, surprised about different, like, new developments on our own children and how that affects our dogs, and actually new. So limit setting is kind of like, for many years, it does help tremendously. Like, I don't have to watch her and stop her so many times because she's just not doing it, but I'm kind of watching, right? And I did that training with the dog bowl with water for my very pushy Zach, the 2-year-old now. When he was, I don't know, 6 to 8 months, he was going for a water bowl. I stopped him. It took like 2 weeks of constant work. Every single day, I'm going to stop you. No, thank you. That's not for humans. That's for PETA. So eventually he, you know what, like, I know you're going to stop me. I'm not even go there. I'll do something else. Like, yes. Good.
Well, I think it's super helpful. I hope that if, you know, anybody watches this who's, you know, expecting a baby, or, you know, getting ready or thinking about it, that just to think about some of these things ahead of time, because I think it's probably so much harder to step in later after, you know, behaviors are happening and the toddler is, you know, bothering the dog. And I'm sure that's probably when you get calls, right? Is after something has happened, or there's already a lot of unsafe things going on, and it's a lot harder to set those limits, you know, after they've been there, right? So
absolutely, you're very right. I get a lot of calls when the babies are now crawling. Also, when crawling babies are now walking. Those are 2 moments of transition where I receive a lot of calls. Like, hey, my dog is actually growling. My dog starts snapped at my toddler. Eeks. When some little things could have prevented that. For dogs that are actually not, they are not so terrified that a bite is imminent, right? It was just like that, kind of like they let the baby crawl. The dog was sleeping, and here's the toddler pulling the dog's, you know, hair. And so there are cases and cases, right? I do receive a lot of calls when a problem already happened, but I'm glad to know that now that more and more I'm receiving more calls about preparing this for babies and dogs, which is awesome. That means the word is being that we need to prepare.
So you have some resources on your website, is that right? Or some videos, or can people go to your website to learn a little bit more on some of these topics?
There's a little blog. It's a very short one with key points, which honestly, you're sleep deprived. That's all you have stamina for. 5 steps for interacting with babies and dogs. Super short, to the point. Now, if you want more information, visuals of me training and what I mean about separation, what I mean about visual, the children train, how to use it, all that. There's a little webinar I have. It's a 1-hour video where I go over in details about those things. I focus a lot on those 2 things: the mat training behavior, training a few behaviors to get your dog out of dodge. Let's say the dog is feeling cornered. Okay, do a hand touch right here, and how to train those behaviors on your dog. And also a lot of limit setting examples and videos of me limit setting Zach with the water bowl and with dog PETA. So it's super fun because it's it gives the parents like a perspective about where things are going. Because if, let's say, they are caregivers or they're expecting a baby, they can actually visualize what life would be like, kind of, sort of, and what management looks like and what training looks like. So that's very helpful for people to see in video what that looks like, so they can implement more successfully at their own houses.
Right, right, absolutely. Well, I think that that's probably a good point for us to stop. And I think, you know, people can get in touch with you, right, if they have questions or want to learn more about working with you. And if you haven't checked out the blog, I think there might be some more info that we didn't talk about, or different topics that are in the blog post, so you can check
Yeah,
that out.
yeah.
Thank you so much, Tania, for your time. I know you have so much going on, so I just really appreciate it. And I know that this is helpful info, and hopefully some people will have some good info to work with. So
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you, Liz, and thanks for being an awesome dog walker in this area, and your training. You're doing so much to your clients and to society, like basically like to our peers here in Oakland. You're doing so much, and you have your Leashes company, which growing successfully. You have great leashes, and I recommend them for everybody. And by the way, biotin leashes are my preferred leashes of all times. I use them daily, and I recommend them daily for my clients. I think there's no better leash. It doesn't get cakey. It doesn't get, it doesn't get dirty. It's good in the hands. I think it's one thing I use a lot. And also, I do a lot of parallel walk with my dogs and my toddlers, and those are the leashes I use. So I'm very glad you're making those, because I didn't have any person before to refer to. So I'm really glad you're making them. So thank you.
oh, well, thank you. Thanks for the plug. And yeah, no, I agree. They're great. And yeah, so thank you so much.
You're very
And
welcome.
yeah. Well, thanks everybody for joining, and I hope to see you soon in person, Tania. We'll have to figure out a time to get the kiddos
Absolutely.
together eventually. Yeah.
Yes,
All
very
right.
much
Take
so.
care.
Take care.
Okay.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.